Hello, fabulous listeners. Thanks for tuning in to Old Bodies Outside. This is your host, Brian Peterson. This episode's guest is Paul Jesse. In 2 weeks, on July 14th, Paul will be running the immensely challenging Hardrock 100 miler in the San Juan Mountains of Colorado, a dream race of his that he has been pursuing for nearly a decade. Paul has agreed to a pre-race recording and a post-race recording on Old Bodies Outside. This episode is his pre-race recording. Additionally, I'll be pacing him for the last 18 miles of the race and hopefully not causing him to drop out. I'm extremely grateful to be a part of Paul's Hardrock journey for several reasons, including I'm hoping my name gets picked for next year's race. Lastly, for his Hardrock training, Paul has been using the coaching services of Nick De La Rosa, who is featured on episode number 9. Paul, I'm ready to be up in Silverton with you.
Yeah, man, it's the weather's starting to warm up on Sunday, so it's we're hoping the snow melts out a little bit more. But yeah, man, I'm stoked to be here to chat with you, and honestly, feel a little humbled by this because you've had some amazing guests on this, and I'm just a weirdo that takes his hobby too seriously.
No, well, I think it's fascinating to hear your long-term commitment to running, your long-term commitment to learning about yourself, your long-term commitment to get into Hardrock. I think those are all, interesting things to include in Old Bodies Outside.
Well, I appreciate it. It's funny. I actually was out on a training run probably about a month or two ago with some people, and one of the guys, he's a younger guy. He's like, doesn't know quite as much about Hardrock and stuff, and he was just thrown off by the fact that I would wait. Like I started applying in 2015, I think probably around the same time you did. I might've been a year later than you even. And he's like, there's so many hundreds out there. Why would you just keep trying to get into this one instead of just going to something else? And I was like, nothing else matters this much. Like I came out here in 2015 for the first time, and I've been here almost every year since, other than one of the cancellation years I missed and then missed last year. But this race, not just the course, but the community around it means a lot. And I've been really fortunate to have some incredible mentors that have ushered me along in the sport and specifically kind of towards this race. So I don't have anything else that my wife obviously and my dog, but I don't really have much else in my life that I care about as much as I've been wanting to get into this thing.
Yeah. And it might sound kind of like a weak reason or a weak benefit of the Hardrock process, but I'm going to say it anyways. And one of the things that I have personally liked about the Hardrock process, and for those people that are listening out there that are not familiar with the Hardrock process, you have to qualify for Hardrock, and your qualifier lasts for 2 years. And then Hardrock has a lottery every single year, and they have a list of races that you need that are qualifier races, and they're usually high elevation mountain races. And each year that you don't get your name pulled in the lottery, you accrue more tickets. And so the weak benefit of the Hardrock process that I was going to say is there's so many races out there now. There's so many 100-mile races out there, so many ultra marathons. And Hardrock has actually given me a little bit of guidance of what races to do. And so I've been choosing different qualifiers as I've been trying to get into Hardrock. And so I've actually really liked that piece of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like doing the qualifiers has taken me all over the place. Like actually my first qualifier I did isn't even a qualifier anymore. It was Pine to Palm. And then they took it off the qualification list like right after I did it. So they honored the qualification for those 2 years, but it got pulled off that next year because they're pretty restrictive on what qualifies. Because honestly, I've done, I don't know how many qualifiers now, and none of them compare. Like it's just, there's nothing in the US that I've seen and I mean, even Fat Dog 120 up in Canada that I did as a qualifier 1 year. There's just not much that you can find that compares to the difficulty, the technicality, honestly, some of the just pure danger on this course. Like there's things on here where, if I didn't see it ahead of time, I'd be going in blind, and I think that would be even worse. Like I'm very fortunate that I've gotten to see every part of this course over the years with pacing some veterans that have, kind of taken me under their wing and allowed me to kind of tag along during their races. And that's been a huge help because this course it's a monster.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting from a safety standpoint. If you're the race director for Hardrock and you're like, okay, I got this really, really cool course, but it has components to it where people need to be competent. They need to be aware of what dangerous aspects are out there. They need to be able to overcome some things by themselves on the course in between aid stations. Okay, so I'm the race director. I got this cool course. It's up in the mountains. You even go over a 14,000 foot peak. But how do I deal with the qualification, right? And there's not really a course that matches it. So it's a challenging thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the closest one I've found was probably High Lonesome, which is out here in Colorado as well. It has some high elevation, but those trails are much more established than what you'll see on this course for sure. I mean, even some of the established trails here, like when you're coming down Bear Creek into Uray, there's a section where you're running and like the motto is fall to your right if you're coming down, because otherwise if you fall off the left, there's a 300 to probably 800 foot drop just straight down into the ravine on the left hand side. So you got to kind of just hug the cliff that's going up on this side or on your right hand side as you're coming down. So yeah, there's just a lot of sketchy stuff that you can get into, especially this year. It's going to be really interesting just with the amount of snow that's on the course. The winter here was just huge. So we're hoping over with these temps rising, we'll get a little bit more melt, but there's still going to be some interesting spots out there for sure.
Yeah. And, I've only seen a few miles of the course, and that's hiking up to Island Lake and back down. So I think that I arrive, the race starts on Friday morning. I'm arriving to Silverton Wednesday night, and I start pacing you at some point on Saturday is the plan.
Yeah, as long as everything goes well.
I was going to say, hopefully I'm pacing you on Friday. I don't think that's going to be possible.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but I'll be happy for pacing me on Saturday.
Yeah, and hopefully early in the AM too. So something for me is on Thursday and Friday, I'm going to have some free time. Like I'm going to go and be a part of the community. I'm going to be there for check-in. I'm going to see the race off at the start line on Friday morning. But, Friday I have the whole day to myself. There's going to be several hours where I have things to do on Thursday. And so I think at those two opportunities, it's going to be good for me to get onto the segment that I am pacing you and familiarize myself with that area a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it was funny because I think I've told you this, but I definitely have talked to my wife about it, and Carrie, who you know well. I felt terrible. I was extremely excited when I got pulled on the lottery, but then shortly afterwards, it sunk in. I was like, oh man, Brian didn't yet, and he's got more tickets than I do. So I legitimately felt a little bad. But the more I thought about it, I was like, I'm actually kind of glad it worked out this way, because it does give, obviously you've been here, you've been to Silverton, you've been to the San Juans, you've seen some stuff, but it just gives you the chance to kind of come out and see the race without having the pressure of having to do it first. Because that's something I've found I've been hugely appreciative of, is like having been out here for all these years, coming out as a crew and a pacer and getting to be a part of the community, before actually having the pressure of like, oh crap, now I actually have to do this thing.
Yeah, no. And that's what I was alluding to in the introduction. While I'm so grateful to be a part of your journey for several reasons, that's one of the reasons right there is I'm getting to like kind of scout the whole situation here. And as I just said a minute ago, I've only been on a few miles of the course. I've been in the San Juans, but I really don't know what Hardrock offers. I've heard, descriptions. I've not experienced it. And you've experienced a lot of it firsthand, which is, great going into July 14th.
Yeah, I've been super lucky. I mean, I've seen every section of this course in it. So the course runs opposite directions every year. So this year we're running counterclockwise. I've been fortunate enough to see every section in at least one direction. Some of them I've actually seen in both directions, just because the people I've paced, one was Scotty Mills, who, a lot of people in the ultra running community are going to know him. He's just kind of a legend. He's been around for literally as long as we've been alive. He's been doing this stuff. He's in his 70s now. He'll be on our crew early on, and then he's pacing a friend of ours towards the end of his race. So the first time I came up here, and every time since then, anytime Scotty was running, he was over 60, and any 60-year-old can have pacers right from the start. So that was hugely beneficial to myself and a couple of other people that he had on his team, because we were able to see sections that normally you would never be able to pace. So that was really helpful. And then the last two times I paced, I actually paced this amazing woman. Her name's Betsy Kalmeyer. She has, I believe, I'm going to get this wrong, she's either 20 finishes or 21 finishes now, with only two DNFs ever at Hardrock. And one was a massive blizzard year where she got hypothermic, and then I think she DNF'd I think she might have DNF'd last year, was her second ever DNF. But she's got 20 or 21 finishes. I'm pretty sure she still holds the women's FK fastest known time for the Colorado Trail.
Wow.
This woman is easily one of the toughest human beings I've ever been around in my life. Like she and Scotty both go back to they're both Air Force grads, obviously separated by some years. She was in one of like the early like one of like the first 2 or 3 classes that had even women graduate from the Air Force Academy.
Wow.
And then of course I love her because she's a Pittsburgh native, which I grew up back there, went to school in Pittsburgh, so we hit it off well because us burgers got to stick together.
Nice.
I've been just super lucky to have them, take me under their wings and just give me the opportunity to follow them around the course. Because it's not like, Scotty's got 10 finishes. She's got at least 20. It's not like they need my help out there to like keep them on course. Like I'm going to need from you. But they just wanted me for company. And honestly, I just picked their brains the entire time I was out there. And like, it was so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I think, Paul, you're going to be serving in that capacity for me when I get into Hardrock.
Well, dude, that's honestly one of the biggest things for me. You, and then, there's another guy on our team, Jameson, who's coming out. He's a younger guy. You're going to like him. He's a good dude. But he, like his partner, she just did her first 50 miler, I think. And he hasn't quite dipped his toe yet into the ultras, even though he's done some pretty tough, like trail running, adventures. So he's the one I suckered into going up and over Kroger's Canteen with me, and some of those gnarly sections. So I figure out, little baptism by fire.
Yeah. Oh man, he's gonna love it. He's gonna fall in love with it.
Oh yeah, and that's my goal. Is like, I've had these people kind of just shepherd me along, and if I can do that for somebody else and kind of introduce them to this amazing environment and community,
yeah, and community too.
It's kind of my responsibility to do so.
Yeah, and this is something that the ultra running community gets a lot of positive and rave reviews. People are like, gosh, I just really love that community a lot. And something that, you and I have transitioned from being younger runners in the community to now, we're in our midlife. And one of the things that I have noticed in that transition was it's gotten to this point now where it's like, I'm interested in inspiring others. I'm interested in building this community. I'm interested in diversifying this community because it's such an awesome and welcoming community. I think a lot of people just aren't aware of it, or they are, there's perceptions of, it's pretty hardcore, and that might be a little bit of a barrier of entry until you maybe meet someone, know someone that has done it. And you're like, okay, if they've done it, I can do this too.
Oh, absolutely. And I got started with this stuff. I ran my first 50K in 2010, I guess it was. And then pretty much right away started putting on, I was already putting on short distance, like 5K half marathon trail races. And then I immediately jumped into, after doing that, putting on some longer distance trail stuff up to 50 miles. And I was just so welcomed in by the other race directors at the time it was in San Diego, where we were both living. And, everyone was just so welcoming and like really helped me figure it out. Cause I didn't really know what I was doing, so like, and the cool thing about that community at the time and still to this day is, when you go to an ultra in Southern California, especially San Diego, almost every aid station is managed by a race director from a different race that comes out and like helps out. And, so it is a really, really cool community. Every community has their things that, maybe people don't like about it or whatever. But I feel like with the welcoming nature of this community, it's just a matter of taking a couple extra steps to, bring in a little bit more, or like, just more people and a little bit more diversity to it and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We were really fortunate to, kick things off with the San Diego ultra running community. Because there's a lot of group runs. You and I, we went running together a lot, but we also ran a lot with other people. It was easy to connect with people. And social media wasn't quite what it was today. We're talking, over a decade ago. And it really was a great community to get involved with. And I was just, as you were saying that, I was like, really reflecting on it, because I've lived now in all these various parts of the country with California and Utah and South Carolina and Kansas. And Kansas, gosh, I don't really know too many people that are doing ultra running, but we got it. We do have a community here. It's there. And in fact, my partner Jessa, she has a friend at work who's getting into ultra marathons. He's running his first 50K, and he ultimately wants to build up to 100 miles. And so I was like, oh, connect us up. And so him and I are going to be getting coffee the Sunday after 4th of July and just talk, ultra marathons and whatnot, and hear where he's at and stuff. And it's another place where it's like, I hear someone locally that's getting into it. I'm like, oh yeah, connect me up. I'd love to talk to him and cheer him on.
Yeah, and it's super exciting too. Like, it gives you, it almost gives you rookie eyes again, and like this fresh perspective of like, oh man, you're seeing it from like this brand new perspective again. Cause you get kind of, I don't want to say jaded, but you just get so used to it and things become so normalized like I was talking to another hard rock runner that I met yesterday out on the trail. And I was like, you get so into this community and doing these things and things that become normal for you. You try and talk to somebody that's not in the community and realize really quickly how it's not really all that normal. And even though, we feel like it is. So when you have somebody that's newer to the community that's just coming in, it's really exciting because you're like, oh man, you have so much like cool stuff waiting for you. If you do get in there and you like it and you stick with it, there's just so much cool stuff coming for you.
I agree. And you just made me think of the first time I finished a 50 miler, the first time I finished 100K, the first time I finished a 100 miler, and like those accomplishments as I built them with each finish. I mean, like it's my 100 miler for sure. I definitely teared up coming into the finish line. But all of those races building up, I had never felt so much self-pride. And that was something that that sense of accomplishment that gave me that self-pride was unmatched in pretty much most facets of my life.
Yeah, I have yet to find anything in my life that gives me the ability to, how do I want to say this? I guess the ability to believe in myself like this does. This is something I've thought a lot about, like my why for why, like why one, do I do this? Why does hard rock matter so much? All this stuff. This has been like the main thought process during my training over the last basically 6 months of, why do I care so much about this? And a big part of it comes down to, I've never had anything in my life that I do it because, or when I do it, I know exactly who I am when I'm doing it. It's part of what I love about running is that, one, it just appeals to my black and white brain. I'll never get rid of that engineer brain, no matter how far I've come away from that degree that I have sitting in a drawer somewhere. But, that analytical brain is still there. So running is one of those, like 100%, what you put in is what you're going to get out. And I haven't found anything else in life that's like that and I think part of it is, as much as we love the community and stuff, it is still so individualized. Like you're the only one that can get yourself out the door to run. You're the only one that knows what you're really doing, no matter what's on Strava or what's on, even what your coach sees on training. Like my coach uses, like Nick, you mentioned, we use Training Peaks. I'm the only one that really knows how much I'm putting into something. And, when you do that and you start to see the results, it's for me at least, it's just it just feeds itself. It just makes me even hungrier to keep trying.
I think it's a really good point, Paul. Like the individual aspect of it, for me, and I know you do too, we both get up really early, go on training runs. You go earlier than I do. I think you get up at 4 a.m. I'm a 5 a.m.er. But it's very individualistic, right?
Yeah.
And you what you put in, you get out. And it's like, if you train to finish and get to the finish line, it's because of yourself. Like no one else, there could be people there cheer you on. There could be the social aspect, a lovely community, but ultimately the work, like this is something that you put in for yourself. And I was thinking more, this is a great question. Why do we do it? And this came up at a family dinner one time. We had some extended family in town. And Jessa's cousin was asking me this, and cousin's just really curious and interested, genuinely, sincerely. And she's like, why do you do this? And I was like, and I talked about the sense of accomplishment thing that I talked about earlier, but I also, just talked about how it's something that it breaks so strongly from the daily routines of my life that I don't want to say it makes me feel more alive. Like that's a little too rosy, but it's something that breaks so strongly from my daily habits, my daily routines, that it's something that just like, whoa, like I just lived a big, big experience, and it's a big experience finishing pretty much every race. Hard Rock is going to be an even bigger experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, you know me well enough to know that like interpersonal relationships, not necessarily my strong suit, so it's like, so the individual nature of running just has that immediate, and not even like it has that immediate feedback, but it has that compounding interest where, over the time of doing it, you know, I got up here to Silverton and, going through the last probably month or so of my training, I started feeling really, really fit, and it made me nervous because I'm like, I don't do well with having confident voices in my head. I usually have those like, oh, you're not ready, you're not ready. So it pushes me a little harder. But all of a sudden I was like, man, I've been nailing workouts. Like Nick has been crushing it with me, pushing me pretty hard. And I've been nailing all these workouts, and I've been like, feeling really good. And then I got to Silverton, and the first climb I did was up Green Mountain out of the first aid station. And it's a beast of a climb. It's one of the harder ones, I think, on the course. And it's really early, and it just destroyed me. Like I started that climb, and I was like, I don't belong here. Like, this is not good.
Wow.
But, so then I was talking to my wife yesterday, and, even though I know what I do, sometimes you just get in your own head. And so like, one of the things she said is, she's like, I've never seen you work this hard for anything. Like, you've never trained this hard for anything. So you need to just relax a little bit. And then, so I started scrolling through my training log, and it's one of the main reasons I keep a training log is now before a race, I can go back and look at the amount of work I've put in, not individual workouts. I don't really care that much about those, but just the cumulative effort that's been put in. And not even just over the last 6 months of training for this, but like over the last handful of years, the things that I've done, it's, having that ability to look back at those things, it helps for sure when you start getting in your head, psyching yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, first off, I wish I had done that. I don't keep track of anything of myself when it comes to
running.
running.
You don't even wear like a GPS, man. You just know like your old school Timex still. And I love it.
I'm pretty yeah. And like, I mean, that's kind of like what keeps me kind of keeping running is play in my head. When I start to over quantify it, it's not so much play, but I do wish that I had a track record of that. I've done a lot of running just like you, and it's like I'm at the point in life
You've done a lot more than I have, man.
I think I'm going to revert back to the GPS because I think like I'm over this hump of like putting all these like external expectations on myself, and just more so like, hey, like, this, like, no matter what, if I have a watch on my hand, I'm seeing how far I go, like it's still play. But I think like it took a little while to kind of get past that. Like when I was I was quantifying myself a lot. When I did use a GPS watch for a little while, and like I was just pushing myself way too hard and whatnot, and then it got away from being play. So I do wish I had that ability to look back on it. But one of the things you've been talking about, the mental aspect of doing something like this, and there is an intimidation factor. I think that intimidation factor probably has you a little bit pumped up for training for the next week or so before you really go into a hard taper.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm hoping Nick hasn't put my schedule together for next week, but we were texting this morning. I think this will be my last solid week of training is this week, and then we'll go into a pretty good taper next week. Just because, I told him, I'm like, I know it's getting close because I am dying for taper. Like I am ready for it, But normally I probably would have started a little bit more of a taper this week, except, with my job, there's I had 2 full weeks where I just couldn't train over the last 2 months just because of, putting on events, I'm on my feet the whole time. And so there's some benefit there, but I can't actually get any running in during those work weeks. So we did push it a little bit closer to the race. I didn't do a 3-week drop down. It's just going to be a 2-week drop down. So I'll get some more miles in next week for sure. But going back to the GPS thing though, I mean, I think there's a couple things about that. One of them being, I think it just depends on what your goals are, if for me at least, I'll always run with a GPS just so I have that. I just like having that tracking. But my running after Hard Rock for the rest of the year is going to be very different than the first 6 months. You will not catch me on a track. That's for dang sure. But in addition to that, it's I use a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Basically just dumb routes that I do in training. things I would never do just for an enjoyment run, but it's because I know what I'm getting ready for. And so I have these contrived routes that I'll do where it's like, all right, I'm just going to do repeats on this hill because that's what I need to do. Where for the next 6 months of the year, all my running is going to be looking at a map, finding a link up of random peaks that I just want to hit, and be like, and it's going to be pure enjoyment after this. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, there's some enjoyment in this training too, but when I have like a solid goal, it's not as much, I don't care about as much about the enjoyment of the training. It's more, okay, I know what I need to do to get ready for this. So let's just focus on that. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have like a specific race you're training for or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just go out and have fun. That's what it's all about.
Well, it's been kind of funny I know that pacing you, I'm pacing you, but I've been kind of training for this, like staying very consistent. I'm bumping up my training a little bit starting tomorrow. My parents are coming in town. They like to go on evening walks. And I was already like, okay, when we go on evening walks, I'm going to wear my 40-pound weight vest, get a little bit of extra training in the evenings with them. Cause I'm coming from Kansas. Like I'm intimidated about the hills and whatnot. And like, usually I'm like all about it, but it's like, I have nothing to really train on other than bleachers.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am intimidated to come pace you, but I'm sure I'll be fine.
Oh yeah, I mean you'll be fine. I'm going to be moving so slow by that point, dude. It'll be fine. But I mean, I know what you mean though, because my first probably must have been my first 2 or 3 years of coming up here to pace. I was still living in San Diego, so I was coming from sea level, and I'll never forget I think it was the first time I paced. I was pacing Scotty. We were leaving Ouray, and the way the course goes, you leave town on some nice single track, but then you hit Camp Bird Road, and it's just the road doesn't end. Like it just goes forever. This is like a 10-mile climb. I think it's probably 7 miles or so on the road. And then you turn off at the Governor Aid Station to go up to Kroger's. But that road just doesn't end. And it's just a long climb. So finally at one point I'm like, all right, Scotty, I got to step off the trail and relieve myself. I'll catch back up. And I stepped off the trail. He kept going. I got back on the road and like tried to run to catch up to him. That was a horrible mistake. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. So there, I mean, I know we've talked about it, and I've talked to my other pacers. I'm like, listen guys, I'll be moving slow, but if for any reason you got to stop, like it's not easy to catch back up if we're going uphill, because it's just the altitude. I mean, we're above 12 for so much time, like 12,000 feet for so much of the time. I mean, Ouray is the lowest point, and that's a little over 8,000 feet. But you literally come down into that, and then you leave and you go right back up high again.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that, I get in Wednesday night, so I'll be sleeping there Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. And then probably wake up very early on Saturday, 'cause I got to hike in like 2 hours or something. I think 4 miles or something.
Yeah, it's not too bad. You basically, so for your aid station where you're picking me up, you just gotta, because it's called Ophir Pass, that is a 4x4 road that goes up and over the mountain there. And it gets a lot of OHV and not ATV, but like Jeep traffic and stuff like that. So they can't have vehicles parked there. So you have to park in the town of Ophir, which is like about 2 miles away. But the problem is it's an all uphill hike to get there. So it'll be a good warm up for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So with pacing, you got, how many pacers do you have?
Let's see, I've got 4. So you can have a pacer starting in this direction, Animas Forks. Unfortunately, my buddy who was going to pace me isn't able to anymore. So I've got another friend stepping in for that one. And that'll be Animas Forks to Ouray, and then Ouray to Telluride to Chapman, and then you'll pick me up in Chapman. So I can have 4 pacers for this one.
And so how's is Carrie going to be like the point of contact? I'm assuming she is. She's going to be directing all the pacers. Are you going to get all the pacers together on Thursday or something and just make sure we're all got the game plan down?
Yeah, we're gonna have just have dinner and stuff Thursday night so we can all get together for one last night before the chaos starts on Friday. But yeah, Carrie's the crew chief. I mean, this will be my 12th 100-mile start, and if all goes well, my 10th 100-mile finish. So she's been with me every single one of these ones, so she knows them just as well as I do. And so like she's my crew chief, like she has things dialed, so her and I, we'll start talking a little bit over the net while I'm just living out of my truck here. She's back home with the dog. So we're just kind of communicating over phone for the next basically week and a half until she gets here the same day you do. So we'll start doing some minor planning, and I started a list today of what do I need from crew, what do I need from pacers, and then I'll have that all put together for you guys. So you guys know what I'm going to be, what to do with me when I start crying out there.
Yeah. Well, all of this, I'm feeling really excited at the moment. And so and I'm really excited to be out there pacing. Really, really am. And how do you imagine our sequence going? I'm going to pick up at Chapman. I only know the Island Lake part of the course.
Yep.
I need to look at it a little bit, but how do you imagine that going? I know it's going to be, I'm picking you up around a little bit before mile 82, right? Yep. Is it like 81.8 or so?
Yeah. And so the course is actually a little longer now. It's 102 and a half miles. So,
excellent.
So you got a couple extra bonus miles ahead of you. It's going to be real interesting. So I actually went up and did part of our sections this morning. I went up from the Ice Lakes Trailhead, which is not part of the course, but it does connect you up to the course right below Island Lake. So I went up past Island Lake and up to Grant Swamp Pass, and it looked okay. There's still some snow fields, but I think most of that's actually going to melt off by race week. But that'll be our down. Like, we'll be coming down off Grant Swamp that way. But when I got at the top of Grant Swamp and I looked off the backside, it's extremely snowy back there. So I'm imagining they're probably going to have to chop some steps into the snow there. If we hit it middle of the day, it should be soft enough that it's not like terrible. There's some nighttime sections that I'm going to be hitting with Jameson that are going to be way sketchier, just because they're going to be like solid,
be iced up.
Yeah. So I don't think we'll need traction or anything like that, no matter what. But that'll be kind of more of a game time decision, basically on race week.
Okay.
The next thing is they have the day before the race, they have like the big pre-race meeting, which I can't wait till you guys come to that, because
I'm so excited for that. Yeah.
I tear up every year, because one of the things they do is they go around the room and like have everybody stand up that's finished. And then they start like yelling out numbers of like, okay, who's finished more than once? And like, or if you haven't finished more than twice, sit down, like, and all this stuff, all the way up until, Kirk Apt is the one who has the most, who's got like 25 or 26 finishes.
Amazing.
Or something insane like that. And every time you're just like, man, it's just like these guys and women that have been doing it for this long. It's really impressive. So, but the part of that, what they do is, on that day of like all the meetings and stuff, one of the meetings they have is a course preview. Like, so they'll give you the latest information on where is the snow, how bad is the snow, do you need traction? Might you need an axe? I don't think it's going to be, right now there's sections I wouldn't do without an axe, but by race day, they usually chop steps and put ropes in some of those sections. So you don't really need an axe. So we'll get that information on Thursday before the race. And then Wednesday or Friday, after I get started, immediately after the race starts, they have a crew only meeting. So all the crew and pacers can go in and they'll give a rundown of anything that might have changed overnight, or just whatever the crew needs to know. So you guys can get the latest download before you come out to that first aid station to see us all come through there.
Okay. Excellent. That's great. Yeah. And I feel like the back of Grant Swamp's Pass is a little bit of a north aspect, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't. Apparently, it just doesn't see snow based on the sun, because based on the amount of snow I saw up there, I don't know if sun even touches it. Like, there was like a pretty solid amount of snow. Even when I got up on the pass, I was walking on the top of the snow, and that was probably a good 4 to 5 feet above the actual pass, just like the snow that's up on top there. So the other side, it's holding pretty heavily. I was talking to a guy yesterday who, I think he was Grouse. He went out to Grouse Gulch area, and it was okay, except for like there's a section called American Basin, and that's the problem. There's a lot of these passes, and like you're up so high, you go up and over a pass, and then you drop into a basin. And even if the pass is clear, the basins are all holding a ton of snow. So like Green Mountain, when I did that the other day, the climb was totally fine, but then you get up to the top and you're up in the basin up there, and you're just kind of choose your own adventure to get across the snow to get over to the pass that you're trying to get to. So, but that's, honestly, that's a big part of the appeal to this race is, their tagline for the race is rugged and tough. And
absolutely,
it's 100% accurate. Like it's a no joke deal for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited for all those conditions. As long as I don't post hole like that time in Utah in the snow that you saw me.
Dude, every time I post hole, I think of that run where we're coming down and you post holed so hard. I don't know how you stood back up. I thought for sure you ripped apart every tendon in your leg and I was going to be carrying you off that mountain.
Dude, my leg should have dropped off. I think that like somehow like hyperextended. I don't know how it worked. My knee came up to my face and I have no clue
Well, the
what
snow
happened
was
there.
so deep. Your leg went in all the way to the waist. You whiplashed so hard, your face hit the snow. I was like, I've never seen somebody whiplash down that hard and pop back up and just start laughing.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I'm ready for these snow conditions. I'm ready for what? Rugged and wild.
Oh yeah, man, it's gonna be. And you know, it's funny because like Hard Rock, they don't even call it a race; they call it a run.
Yeah.
And I've been telling myself that like anytime I get any, anxiousness about goals or what I want to do out there, I'm like, doesn't matter. All that matters is the adventure of completing this circle. It's hard to find a more impressive loop than this one, where it's 102.5 miles in just the most incredible terrain with these giant mountains.
Yeah.
You feel so small the whole time, and there's nothing you can do about it because these mountains just don't care. Like they're just there. They're huge. There's nothing you can do to beat the mountains. You just have to hope that they're nice enough to let you through.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So for me, what types of things should I pack? And I'm gonna overpack. I'm gonna overpack like in terms of gear. I should. I don't think I'll need my marker spikes. I'll throw them in. Why not? Like I'm gonna bring a suitcase of just like gear. Like I might bring some tights, bring a couple jackets. I'll definitely have my vest with me. Bring some poles.
Poles, I would say for sure. Like I don't know how any. I look back at some of the older pictures before poles became more normalized in the U.S. and it blows my mind that people did this race without trekking poles.
Okay.
That's just insane to me. I can't imagine it. Like, especially in a snow year, it'll just help for stability on some of the downhills and some of the uphills. Because like I was going up things today, holding my pole like halfway down because the slopes are so steep. And basically almost using it like an ice axe, like you would use an ice axe where you punch it into the snow and use it as like leverage to pull yourself as you're climbing. Always pack, they even say this in like the runner's manual, always pack one more warm thing than you think you'll need. For us, if we're out there when I think we're going to be out there or when I hope we're going to be out there, there's a good chance like shortly before the finish, we might hit one of those afternoon thunderstorms coming through.
True. Okay.
So I'm going to have a rain jacket, like a legit rain jacket and legit rain pants with me the entire time, no matter what. I'm just never going to put them down. One of the benefits of having been out here in Pace, I've seen some mistakes and unfortunately contributed some of them for my runners where, like, for example, one year, Scotty, we came down into Telluride and it was crazy warm in town, just crazy warm. So he took everything off, like anything warm that he had, he just left it at the aid station. Well, you immediately go back up high and up and over another pass, and they got caught in this horrendous hailstorm up there. And the only thing he had to keep his hands warm were his pacer that picked him up there had a knee brace. So he was running with his hands in this knee brace just to keep his hands from freezing until they can get up and over the pass. And that's not an uncommon story here because people will get caught in storms constantly. When you're spending 30 to 48 hours in giant mountains, you almost are guaranteed to get into some kind of storm. Like you can't avoid all of them. So, rain gear is huge. Your feet are going to be wet the entire time. So, as long as you're comfortable with that, you'll be fine. I'm not going to probably change shoes at all, but I'm probably going to change socks at least like probably 2 or 3 times during the race. Just to kind of freshen up, like just get a nicer feel on my feet and get some of the dirt and rocks and debris that are in there out. But just for pacing, I wouldn't worry about changing socks or shoes. You're just going to have wet feet.
Yeah, that's really good. What kind of poles do you use? Do you use those Black Diamond ones?
Yeah, I've had Black Diamond forever. I think I'm on my 3rd pair now, and I love them. Black Diamond stuff's always been, I just like the stuff that company puts out. So the Z poles, the carbon Z poles. I actually have like an older set that I'm using, because now they have like the semi-adjustable ones where just the handle can adjust a little bit, but still folds down. That's their newer version. I had a pair of those, but I broke them unfortunately on a pretty good fall in the Sierras. And so I went back to my old pair, but these things have been I've had this pair probably for, man, I don't want to jinx them and knock on some wood, so I don't break them right before the race, but I've had these things for a handful of years and I love those poles.
Yeah. So I have 2 sets of poles, but they're for backpacking, and I wonder how durable they'll be, but I'm cool with it. So the first pair, I'm not going to bring these, and they are my original Gossamer Gear trekking poles. They do not telescope or anything. But Jessa has telescoping Gossamer Gear ones that I can telescope down and put them away. I just got to make sure that they don't have a lot of lateral flexibility to them. They can put a lot of pressure straight down, but the lateral flexibility is how you break them. And so, do you know those Lecky ones that are getting real popular? Is it the same thing with them?
Yeah, I don't know much about them other than that they're super popular. I was actually just talking to Jameson about this recently because he was looking to maybe getting a pair for this because he's just got like heavy old school hiking poles that he's probably going to be using. But the thing that I think they're like kind of their main selling point is like they have a glove that you can wear that kind of attaches to the handle that you can just detach the glove that way, as opposed to having like a wrist strap, which I don't know. It's not much of a bonus to me because I don't use the wrist straps anyway.
I don't either.
But I've heard a ton of good things about the Lecky poles. I just haven't tried them myself, but I imagine they're probably pretty similar to the Diamond Z poles.
Okay. How much water capacity are you going to be carrying?
Dude, there's so much water out there. I'm so happy. I'm carrying minimal and carrying a filter. And honestly, most of the stuff you can just drink straight because it's all melting straight from snow. So you can literally put your bottle under a glacier and just drink fresh water almost the entire way.
I love it.
So I'll have 3 550 milliliter bottles with me, but at least two of those will probably have, like calories in them because I drink like a good chunk of about half my calories I get through fluids. And then I'll have a third bottle with just water, but then I'll also have that filter bottle with me as well.
How much is 550 milliliters in ounces?
Oh, I don't know, man. I want to say it's like,
is it like a little bit less than 20?
It's got to be, it's 15 to 18, something like that.
Is it like the Solomon soft flasks?
Pretty much. It's a little bigger than a soft flask.
Okay.
I don't like soft flasks just because you can't get ice in them. So I actually use an Ultraspire pack, and it has like the Ultraspire hard-sided bottles because I can get ice in those, and they don't explode if I land on them. Which I have a tendency to do. But yeah, I tend to prefer hard-sided bottles whenever I can.
Yeah. No, I got a lot of gear to think. I mean, for pacing here, this is going to be really interesting because this is going to inform my gear decisions for hopefully summer of 2024. But I always
Google came to the rescue. It's like 18 and a half ounces.
Okay. So I'll probably bring 2 of those, and I'm going to drink from the streams. I mean, like, shoot, like if I pick up something from the streams, it's going to get me sick post race. So whatever.
That's it. Honestly, man, I wouldn't be surprised at all if I just abandon the filter and just keep filling straight. Like, don't get me wrong, there are certain spots you do not want to drink from because they're coming straight, because
out of mines.
So they're all coming out of mines. But, they're pretty easy to tell because they usually run yellow or orange. It's pretty easy to see like the sediment coming out of them. But pretty much anything above 12,000 feet is going to be pretty clean. There is one big basin that almost every year there's big herd of sheep that's grazing there, so you got to be a little more careful in that one. But other than that, man, especially with the amount of snow and how it's melting, there is just so much water on this course. Like, everything is running so hard. The Cunningham Gulch area, because it's back kind of just outside of Silverton. The waterfalls coming down down the cliff faces on both sides of that gulch are massive right now. Yeah, it's really
water's not going to be an issue. Yeah, but I think water's not going to be an issue, but the thunderstorm issue is very relevant every single year. And that's something that is really, so I have a lot of experience in high mountains with backpacking through the Sierra Nevada doing these off-trail routes, but that's a different situation than doing a race where you're kind of trying to always move forward during a race. During a backpacking situation, if something is coming in that's looking ominous, I'm going to stay low. I'm going to set up my tarp. I'm going to get and set it up underneath trees, get in there, hang out for a few hours, let it pass. But when you're in a race, you're very vulnerable.
And that's the thing is, I mean, I've been weighing this back and forth in my head. Like, what am I going to do when it happens? And obviously it's going to depend on where I am. Like if you're already up on the ridgeline, you might as well just haul your butt and try and get off the ridgeline and get off to the next side. Like there, unless obviously once the hairs on your neck start standing up, then it's a little too late. You just got to kind of crouch down and take the lightning position.
Oh boy.
And there has been multiple people that have, not been directly struck, but very, very close. I mean, Adam Campbell, who out of Canada, he got like him and his pacer got blown off their feet, headlamps blown out, and real late in the race, like as they were getting close to the finish, coming over one of the last passes because the lightning struck right next to where they were. But it's hard because when you're in a race, especially it'll be a different story if I'm like struggling and I'm just trying to get this thing done and time goals are completely out the window, then I'll hunker down, whatever. But if I'm having a good day and time goals are in the window or realm of possibility, it's going to be really hard not to try and push up and over that pass if we see a storm coming in.
Right. And so one of the times we talked, you were kind of saying that I think with one of your goal, so you have several kind of like time goals and whatnot, I think. And I think one of them, you're saying that like I was going to be picking up about probably early, like just like at sunrise almost.
I have to look at the pace chart, but I think let's see, if I were to do, let's see, where's that? Chapman. Yeah. Probably like if I'm having the race of my life, then we're probably looking at sometime around sunrise on Saturday. I would say more realistic is probably going to be in the, mid-morning time frame.
Okay.
But it's just going to kind of, it's so hard to say, it's so many, like, especially with the snow, if it doesn't melt out, how much is that going to slow us down? We don't really know yet. And there's so many things that can go wrong on a course like this that I mostly set time goals simply to give my pacers an idea of when I'll be there, and mostly so I can set up like how much nutrition do I need to carry between aid stations.
Okay.
Like when I start this race, time does not matter. Like I will not be thinking at all about, okay, I got to get to this aid station at this time. Like that doesn't matter at all. It's going to be completely, everything I do out there is going to be completely based on, RPE, perceived effort, making sure my exertion rate isn't too high to burn myself out early, because that's one of the biggest problems people have on this course and most hundreds, go out too hard, because you can go pretty quick to that first aid station. And especially after taper, when you're feeling real good, you can really blow yourself up on those first, like there's some real steep downhills and you can just destroy your quads. So it's really going to be a matter of once the race gets going, time doesn't really matter. It's simply a matter of trying to just one of my mantras for the race is just keep moving, keep eating. That's one of the sole focuses is just keep moving, keep eating, and just keep going like that and, see what happens. I know the shape that I'm theoretically in and what I theoretically could do, but that doesn't mean anything once the gun goes off. And it's just a matter of doing what you can actually do.
Yeah, you've had so much experience that once that gun goes off, everything you're saying is just, it's we've had so many conversations about this, and once the gun goes off, rate of perceived effort, don't go out too hard, and dude, this race is all about finishing. That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely, and that's something I got from Nick was. It's kind of I loved it. I actually picked it up during the podcast he did with you when he was talking about it. The reverse order of your goals, instead of saying your A goal is, the fastest time I want, and then like going down, my A goal for this race is to finish, anything above that, it's a 2-part A goal. My A goal is to finish and enjoy as much as I possibly can. And then anything else after that is gravy. If we have a good finish time, that's just, icing on the cake. But my goal is I've been waiting long enough for this that you have to finish. And, and it also kind of goes back to just the logistics of this race, where going back to what we were talking about early on in this, with the lottery, the way it's set up, it's changed over the last couple of years, but there's still a separate lottery for anybody who has finished and anyone who has not finished. So once you finish, you go into this other pool which isn't nearly as big as that first pool is. So your odds of getting pulled again go up just a little bit, not quite as much as they used to when they shrunk it from 3 to 2 pools, but you have to get that finish if you want to have a chance to get in. Because like, as we've seen, it takes a long time to get pulled for that first time.
Right. Yeah, no, you definitely want to finish. You want to get into that other pool. So when I'm out pacing and, it's getting to be, say I wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. on Saturday, get myself prepped, starting to drive over to Chapman Gulch. I got to hike in. How am I going to know where you're at on the course?
Yeah, so the nice thing about this race that's different than a lot of races, every runner has to wear a spot GPS tracker. So you can, like anybody who's at home or has signal like Wi-Fi or internet or whatever, you can pull it up and you can see where every runner is at all times during the course. They're pretty reliable. Those, it gets a little iffy sometimes when you're in some of the canyons because the signal will bounce and, it might look like you're off trail or whatever, but generally they're pretty good. They're also doing something new this year with the Aravaipa crew out of Arizona. They put on some races up here too, where they're gonna have a live stream going for the first time. So that's going to be interesting to see how they can pull that off in these mountains. But for your aid station, you guys will be able to pretty much just hang out in town, keep an eye on things and just like keep an eye on that tracker online. And then you'll know when you kind of need to come out. But like we were talking about earlier, Carrie's going to have kind of take charge on all that stuff. So she'll know when people need to go, because it takes so long to get between aid stations. It's not like most races where you have to go right from one aid station to the next. You got half a day. You can come back to town and hang out, get some food, just relax and enjoy yourselves, as opposed to being constantly stressed of like, oh, I got to get to the next aid station so I can beat them there. It's like, no, it's going to take me half a day. You'll be fine.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, a lot of the qualifying races probably on average have a 34-hour cutoff. For Hardrock, what's the cutoff time? Is it like 48, 58, 54 hours?
48 hours. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because living in Colorado, when people that aren't, even the people that are into ultras and stuff, like the first question you always get asked is like, oh, have you done the Leadville? And I haven't. It's a great race. I've paced it, I've crewed it. It's just, it's not really kind of my jam. It's just a lot of fire road and stuff like that, which just has fire road too, but it's a little different. But and so people so when I'm like, well, my big Colorado race I want to do is Hardrock. And when they ask for a comparison, the best comparison point that I can usually give to compare Hardrock to Leadville is the final cutoff at Leadville is 30 hours. If you can finish in 30 hours at Hardrock, almost every year you're going to be top 10. Like that's just how much more difficult it is. It's just it's a different type of race.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting statistic, an interesting way to make it understandable too.
Yeah. And like for anybody who knows what Leadville is, it just kind of gives you a sense of like how much more difficult like the mountains are when, you're spending a lot of time on trail, quote unquote, but it's kind of a path more than a trail when you're coming through some of these basins.
That's what I was wondering is like, how much of it do you consider kind of as off trail?
I mean, when I went up to Green Mountain on Saturday, my first morning out here, I was basically just following my map on my phone, like, especially with how much snow was in the basin. Like there was like, you couldn't
Everything's
see
covered.
where you're supposed to be going. So I was really just kind of following the line on my phone to get through the basin. And there's a decent number of spots that, it's, even when it's trail-ish, it's kind of overgrown or, coming down the bottom of the Bear Creek section of coming down into Ouray. I definitely there's a section of trail that it's a trail, it's designated, it's an official trail and everything, but it's just not very well used. So it's kind of overgrown. And I caught my toe 3 or 4 times. And this is just on a short little 10-mile run that I was doing,
Wow.
So I can't imagine what it's going to be like when I'm already tired and almost halfway through the race.
Oh my gosh. So I'm staying at the Eureka campground and I'm thinking that, I don't know if they'll have cell phone service or not, but what I'm thinking is I'll just use my cell phone as a hotspot. And then I can track you. Jess will be with me. We can use our cell phones together if we need to or something. But
yeah, so one of the things that's new this year, actually, that's going to be really nice for you is So there used to be an aid station called Grouse Gulch, and then now they moved it up the road, and now it's called Animus Forks. It's the first aid station I could pick up a pacer. But they're staging everybody out of the Eureka campground because of like parking's really limited up there. So they're making everybody park at Eureka campground before. And then once I get up and over Handy's Peak, which is that 14,000 foot peak you were talking about, that's when they'll let my crew go through to go to that aid station. So they're actually going to have public Wi-Fi available at the campground for people to be able to track. So you picked the right campground, man. You scored.
Jeez. Okay. Now, Paul, all we got to do is we got to do the same run we did last year. We'll just do that on like Thursday together.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I was just happy. I was just happy we came back and in one piece, and you were able to get married later that day, because once we started showing pictures, I think people were a little upset I took you out there on some of that terrain.
No. It was good. I had the ability to say no. I'm an adult.
Exactly. And I mean, I would never send you off into wedded bliss any other way anyway. So it was the only option you had.
Yeah. How cool is that? I got to have a fun adventure, and then go get married and just had, the most wonderful day ever. Like it was fantastic. Going back to Hardrock though, what else do I need to do to prepare? What are our closing thoughts here about Brian pacing over at Hardrock? Anything else I need to take care of? I wrote down some notes because going back to what I've said several times, I'm intimidated here, and I'm taking it very serious. It's not like, hopping into some other races where I might be a little bit more comfortable. Like, it seems like there's going to be some discomfort with this.
Yeah. Honestly, not much, I'll have some plan, I'll have a plan put together for you guys of like, okay, this is when I need you to kind of just be reminding me to make sure I'm eating or drinking or, honestly, the thing is, and this is what I've been telling myself since I've been out here and on these trails, is like, I put in the work physically. Like, I couldn't have done much or anything more than I did. So now it's going to be, all right, is my mind going to let me get through this thing in one piece? It's like my mind is always tends to be my weak point. So I've got some mantras I've got like in the bag for that. And I'll let you guys, I'll definitely let you guys know what those are so you can kind of remind me of them. But honestly, man, I am stoked on the team I put together and that you guys are all willing to come out, because you're all people that I know I'm going to have a good time with. And that's the number one goal. Like, I want to have as much fun out there with all you guys as we can. So, bring as many bad jokes as you can. If you got ridiculous, like music that you want to play that we can sing along to, dude, I was jamming out to some, like, I think some Hercules Disney movie song earlier today when I was out there. So I just want to have as much fun as we can out there. And, that's goal number one without a question.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, it sounds like, you got a wonderful team put together, and you got me, like, when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I might have the opportunity next summer 2024 to put together a team, and I know who's going to be pacing me the last tidbit, and that's going to be Paul. So.
Well, man, I'm just hoping we can recreate some of that magic. The last time you helped me close a race was San Diego 100, and that was probably one of the most solid races I've ever had, and that was only my second 100 miler. So, I put you in that spot hoping we could recreate some of that magic.
Yeah. Well, it's honestly, like, for being the closing leg of pacing at Hardrock, I mean, that's a cool honor. It's a really cool honor. And that would, like, when you were texting me about this, I don't know, was it January, maybe late December?
Yeah, December. The lottery gets pulled in December, and
yeah,
I'll never forget. I was actually working an event that out in Florida when the lottery was happening, and I wasn't able to follow the lottery because I was working. So I just started, all of a sudden my phone started blowing up and I started getting all these text messages. I literally had to go sit down behind a tent on a cooler because I started crying because I was just so excited.
Yes. That's cool. That's cool.
Immediately the first couple thoughts going through my head after I started responding to text was like, all right, I know who I'm putting out there.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's such an honor. Such an honor. And our timing for our family has worked out so perfectly with this. So our kids have been away at wilderness camp for 3 weeks now, and they get back on July 9th, which is,
nice.
Is that Sunday?
Next Friday,
yeah, Sunday.
Yeah, like next weekend.
Sunday,
yeah.
July 9th, I believe. And that's Indy's 13th birthday. She's going to be doing it with her dad that night. Kids will come and stay with us on Monday night. We'll celebrate Indy's 13th birthday, and then we're going to have them till kind of late Tuesday. and we're going to drop them off at Dad's. And depending what time we drop them off, we might make a few hours on our drive and just start heading westbound so that it's not as much of a push on Wednesday. But anyways, the timing is working out really perfect. This is, it's really meaningful to be able to celebrate Indy's 13th birthday. And so that was one of the first things when you texted me, hey, do you want to do this? I was like, okay, it's right around Indy's birthday. How are we going to make, got to double check this. Like, we're in the clear. I mean, it's July 14th. Her birthday's July 9th. But part of the,
close,
and part of that equation was, when is she getting home from camp? She's going to be gone for a month. And what days is she going to be with her dad? And what days is she going to be with us? And so it all worked out perfect. So, man, so cool.
Well, the thing I'm stoked about is once we get out there on the trail, I can't wait to hear all those stories that they come back and tell you from their camp. Because I never got to do a month-long wilderness camp like that growing up. So I can't wait to hear what it was like for them.
My guess that cruise story is going to be, because he had to get a passport to canoe into Canada.
Nice.
And my guess is one of the stories he's going to tell me is that he got to pee in Canada.
That's what I'm talking about. That is perfect. And the best part is, we know that never goes away. I still love finding unique places in the outdoors to go to the bathroom just so I can say I did it.
Well, what did you think of that? That little picture I showed you where the guy ran or cycled from poo-poo to pee-pee campground, poo-poo campground to pee-pee campground?
Anybody that dedicates that much time and effort to do a nearly cross-country ride just so they can go from poo-poo campground to pee-pee campground, that's somebody that's worth getting to know.
He's the man for going poo-poo pee-pee.
It's amazing. When you sent me that picture, I was dying.
Oh my gosh. All right, Paul. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. This has been a very, very beneficial conversation for me, honestly, from the planning front. I'm glad that we got to take the time out and really focus on Hardrock. It's making me feel a lot more confident coming in and helping you. And man, I'm already feeling emotional for you, bud. I really am. So I'm excited.
It's been honestly, something I've had to keep coming back to during a lot of my training runs is I'll start thinking too much about the race and I will legit get emotional during training runs and stuff like that. Just think, because I've paced this leg that you're about to pace a number of times. So I know it pretty well. And so I can visualize the finish really clearly. And even right now, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because it's we've talked about it so much. When you wait this long and you want something this bad, it's hard not to get emotional about it.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a little bit easier to keep focusing on the process and not the destination at the moment.
Well, no question. And that's honestly what's gotten me through all of this is that I kept my head down, completely focused on nothing but what do I have to do for training the next day. And I would try really, really hard not to think about the big picture because I didn't want to get distracted. I just wanted to go day to day and make sure I was getting the work done. But, once you show up in here in Silverton and I'm out on the trails and I'm running into runners that I know that have done it and brand new runners that are in the same boat I am. I mean, currently I'm very lucky that Howie Stern allowed me to use his new house and internet here to kind of make this call. So, now that I'm here and I'm running into everybody and chatting, it's hard to hide that. It's hard to keep that emotion down, man. It's
I'm sure
I got to keep it tempered so we don't burn out too early.
Yeah, right. Well, I think you're going to do great, Paul. You know what you're doing out there, and everything that you said during this conversation is, we've built on this conversation is there's so much underneath this conversation for the conversations that you and I have had together with strategizing about how to race, how to manage ourselves personally during a race. And so it's cool seeing it all come together for Hardrock here.
Yeah, man. And, no matter what happens out there, I figure we should have a good story to tell afterwards, whether it goes well or poorly.
Yeah. Well, the A goal is to get to the finish line.
Absolutely. Just got to kiss that rock, man. I can't wait.
I love it. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot for coming on to Old Bodies Outside. And I'm going to throw on that outro music.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.